What do you think of dating in today's society?
I think dating today has become sort of a taboo subject of sorts, because people nowadays think of dating as being in a relationship instead of thinking of dating as some kind of casual way to get to know someone, which that was what it was like in the past. Because before social media became such a big thing, people would go on dates so they could get to know each other, but now we can get to know each other through text or through Facebook or whatever you use. So I just think it's become a bigger thing than it used to be. It's not as casual, it's more intimate, and it's expected to be a bigger thing than it actually is.
I guess it's difficult. I don't know. I guess it's because of the fact that we were never really told what to do. Because now we're going so much to the internet and we're going so much through where it used to be word of mouth. Now it's just who are you friends with? Who do you link up with? Anywhere, anytime, but it's all digitally. So if you're not really up to date on the 21st century standard of what the internet is, then you can't catch up.
All right, well, I think that dating is completely different than it used to be because of technology, and so many relationships I feel like are skewed because it's easier to say things like kind of behind the blanket of technology. And I don't know, I kind of wish that I was dating in my mother's context, because my mother would go out with 4 guys at a time, and she would kind of date all of them, and then she would eventually get to choose which ones she wanted to keep dating or which ones she wanted to drop. But now I feel like there's this expectation to be monogamous, which I don't necessarily agree with. It's for some people, it's not for some people.
It's almost non-existent. The dating in the traditional sense, we call it the same thing, but it meant something different, I think, a long time ago, before cell phones and Facebook and the internet in general. Dating meant you went on a date, you went out somewhere, you spent some money, you spent time with that person, got to know them. And now, today, it's more of just getting to know someone from a distance, and the actual interaction is less cordial, I guess. It's more functional. I save money. That's a lot of meals and drinks and gas you don't have to waste anymore, right? Yeah, economic, that online dating is.
I think dating has become a very lax term for things. I remember way back in the day, it was called hanging out with somebody, where that's predominantly the person you're with, but you're not actually with them. I feel like there's a lot of blurry lines these days when it comes to that. I can't say anything because I've experienced that. Technically, my 2-year relationship has been official for 5 months, whatever that means.
Casually, I think. I think casual would probably be the best way to describe it now. In my experience, it's never been a real big thing. It's been mostly over digital devices, and it's typically something that's do you want to meet up somewhere, or do you want to just kind of hang out? There's that whole Netflix and chill thing that's going on right now. And I don't think of that as a date per se. Hookup culture has definitely influenced dating in the mainstream sense of the term to kind of include more casual relationships.
I think dating has changed a lot, honestly. My mom, she used to tell me about her mom teaching her to date was picking out a couple of guys she thought were cute and liked and went out with them to the movies or to dinner. And it wasn't anything committed. It was just going out and getting to know someone. And I feel like dating now is turning into this thing where if you go out with somebody, you're automatically in a relationship with them and committed to only them. And I think that's where a lot of problems stem, honestly. I think dating has changed from getting to know somebody to being with somebody. And I don't think it's the same thing as what our society has turned it into.
I don't know, I think it's definitely evolved from what it used to be with technology. Social media is so much more an aspect of dating. And there's such a drastic change now because it's not FaceTime anymore. It's phone time. And that's how you really get to know somebody nowadays.
Well, I don't know. My viewpoint on it is that, you know, I really wish that there wasn't so much technology involved in it. That's kind of my viewpoint of it now, mainly because, like, you know, with phones and stuff, you can't get away from your significant others. Whereas, you know, you think about, like, back in the 50s and stuff, before they had these phones, you know, a guy would go off to work. He wouldn't talk to his wife. He wouldn't talk to his kids. He'd come back, and then they would catch up about what they did about the day. And, you know, I feel like a lot of that is missing because so much of society is posted where everyone can view. I mean, so much of what you do, you know, you get on Facebook, you can see what him or her are doing. You can, they'll text you or they'll Snapchat you or whatever. And it just seems like you're so connected that you kind of get that burned out feeling at some point with relationships. And at least that's what I feel like I see, because you see a lot more short-term relationships now. You see people that date for like a year or two and then they kind of get that burned out feeling.
I think it's becoming too social media active and stuff like that. Texting, meeting people on Facebook, Grindr, OkCupid, all these dating sites. And you're missing a lot from just meeting people personally. And it gets really weird because you're not actually meeting the person. Yeah. You're having them type out how they feel, and they can write anything you want to. And then you also have the opportunity to look their shit up and stuff like that, and, like, you know, stalk them. It's kind of like, oh, you're texting another girl, I see you like someone else's page. You, like, you know. So I kind of think that it's becoming less personal and more complicated and stuff.
I don't know. I think it's kind of, it amuses me, honestly. I think it's funny how it's unique to have a committed relationship with someone for a long time. Like, I think it's funny when I tell people how long I've been dating, they're just like, whoa. It's just like, I get it, you know, because I guess it is kind of like, not necessarily strange, but unique now. It's interesting to me. There seems to be no more, like, limit on relationships. Like, they're going any which way anyone could imagine it. Like, I feel like I know so many people that just are sleeping with each other and other people, which is fine. Like, that's great, but I personally can't really understand it because I don't understand the emotional aspect to that, like having so many separate parts of yourself with other people, because I feel like you really connect a different self with another person. But I feel like in a relationship with just one other person, you can really... it nurtures a different part of you and you grow differently. And it's nice to be able to just completely be. Like, you don't have to put on any masks or act a certain way for different people, and like I don't know, it doesn't seem as fulfilling, I suppose.
I think we've created systems that really facilitate dating. They allow us to constantly be meeting people and judging them from what they look like and reading like self-edited snippets on their like beliefs and what they like to do. But at the same time, like that easy access and that, you know, how smooth it can be can also just like lead us to creating really shallow and superficial relationships with other people, or not really like wanting to get to know people outside of like this tiny, very specific idea of like what you're trying to get out of a relationship, which might like inhibit personal growth. But that being said, as much as I think like things like Tinder and OkCupid may create like very shallow and superficial connections, it's also pretty amazing how we can meet people from all over the world now, and we can have access to populations we would have never had, and in that way our current dating paradigm is like super liberating. It allows people who like maybe like live in a really stifling town and social context to like reach out and meet other people that are like them. I'm thinking of like one of my friends is, you know, he's gay and he lives in a really tiny town here in North Carolina, and so he's like he's dating someone online that he could have never met that person in his little town because he would have been so shunned for it. So that's really cool.
How do you like to define the word dating? You know, when you say you're dating somebody or you're going on a date, what does that mean?
Definitely to just be like with each other. I mean, for me personally, once again, like it means many other things to other people, but like it's also, I think dating is different kind of than when you're really with someone. It's kind of like that, like getting to know people and like, I don't know, kind of the decision. Like there definitely should be a different word for it, because like I don't really feel like what I have with Emily is really dating, because like, I mean, we live together. Like it's not like I can be very much myself and like we can grow from one another, and it's dating is definitely not a good, like a good way to, it's not the best term for it.
Well, I guess I have two different kinds of dating for myself. There's dating where I like go on dates, and that might be with like a couple boys at once, like courting kind of dating. And then there's dating, which I guess to me is usually monogamous. Like I actually have better relationships when there are like no terms like at all. Like we just kind of acknowledge our feelings for each other, and like the sex is good. Obviously, like there's an honest aspect of the relationship, so if I ask how many, like, have you seen anyone else, I expect them to be honest, and like I'll be honest with them. Unless I'm trying to be monogamous, if I'm like, please, like let's just be together, which, I mean that's never happened, but if it were to happen, I would expect them to be monogamous, or we would like part ways.
I like to think of it as a milestone in life, because you know, dating is one of those steps that you get to, that, you know, before you have kids and before you have careers, you just get to enjoy each other's company. You get to learn about them, and you share experiences with one another. And it's just, I don't know, you know, people always say that things happen after marriage, and I've had plenty of people that get married. I mean, even recently, I think I've had 3 marriages this past year, and I've got one more day before my birthday in January. And, you know, things change whenever you get to that point. And, you know, I would say don't rush that dating. Enjoy it, because, I mean, let's face it, when you two start living together and you start seeing each other all the time, it seems like, you know, even I've had friends say, you know, whenever you get married and they see you all the time and you say, bye, I'm going to go camping for the weekend or whatever, significant other's like, see you, have fun, get to have some alone time, yes.
Dating is kind of the precursor to a relationship. I think you don't have to necessarily be completely committed when you're dating. You can be interested in other people, maybe date other people when you're dating one particular person, but then it's kind of old-fashioned, but like you can go steady with someone after a while. Like you can steadily date this one person, not really think about seeing other people. And then I think at some point you're in a relationship. You have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. I just think it gets to a certain point where you've been dating for so long or so intimately that it becomes something else.
I define it by, you know, it's somebody you're seeing, somebody that you try to align your life with. I don't see dating like before, dating was just going out, like I said, and getting to know someone. But now, if I say I'm dating someone, that means like I'm expecting to spend a long period of time with that person. You know what I mean? Like we're aligning our goals and working towards them together. More of a relationship rather than dating as an exercise of getting to know people.
Exclusive. I feel like that's a big thing now. You have to define that you're exclusive, but when you're dating somebody, it's inherently exclusive, like you and that one person. Is my perspective. Not at all dissing on polygamy or anything. That just personally does not work for me.
I think that I would just say, like, dating is kind of like when you're hanging out with someone, regardless of how casual or how like, you know, like official, and by official I mean like you're going out to places specifically to be this person, or like you just happen to run into each other and you're like hanging out. So it doesn't have to be like, let me back up a little bit. I think that dating is when like 2 or more people are spending time with each other. It's kind of established that it's like a little bit more than friendship, you know, like the possibility of like you like kissing is there, and the possibility of you becoming intimate in like a romantic way is there, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but it could happen. But like even in saying that, I'm like, oh, well, it's like true about a lot of the friendships that I have, because I've had a lot of really good friendships where like the possibility of us getting more intimate is there, but then we don't fulfill that. But there's like a certain intentionality around dating that it's like, it's very palpable, you know, it's very like, okay, we're spending time with each other, in kind of like, in a different sense than if we were just like friends hanging out.
For me, dating is getting to know somebody. It just, you know, going out and talking to them and learning more about them as a person.
That's interesting because people can go on a date and not be dating. But I kind of think dating is like 2 people or more people, like, you know, having like a constant like intimate agreement to like, you know, keep it going. I don't think dating is just like, you know, oh yeah, he's my boyfriend, he's my girlfriend, like with labels and shit like that. I think the labels come after the time spent together and like it establishes itself. So that's why, like, you know, with Facebook, it's like, oh, they're dating now. People will like you like sign on to that, and it's kind of like that's fucking weird. You have an announcement. It might not be so.
I know that a lot of people. Let's go back to my experience. My boyfriend and I kind of just like, we started going to meals together. We went to a movie a couple times, but that got really expensive. So we ended up just hanging out together, talking, and we met at a party once or twice, and just kind of took things from there.
Loosely, I am the problem. Dating, I like the concept of like back in the day going on dates and like getting to know someone. I feel like that's how you actually do. I mean, honestly, people over text or whatever, if that's like the core of your relationship, people don't always have to be honest. Like, they could be irritated every time you like blow them off to go hang out with your friends and act fine. But like if you were actually in person with them and you saw their reaction to how you acted, I feel like things would be different. Because actually being with someone, like, well, I guess I say that because like I have no ability to hide my emotions at all. Like if I'm sad, you'll know, happy, you'll know, mad, you'll know, whatever. And everybody clearly has energy, and those energies mixing in person is what it's all about. I could say anything I want over text. Not that I would, but people do.
If they're able to sit with me on a couch and call that a date, then we've reached a new plane of happiness. If we can just turn on Netflix, you know, just go out, get some cookout, and then just sit and be able to talk over whatever show we're supposed to be watching and still have fun as much as we would if we went out and went somewhere else, then I think that I'm dating a person.
How do you think the notion of romance has changed as far as how we go about it, and maybe even like whether or not that's something that's looked for right off the bat?
Romance is fucking dead. The notion of romance, man, when I was growing up, my dad was like my first real male relationship. And that man spoiled the shit out of me. I received flowers, I had poems, I had notes every morning when I woke up. My coffee was made with my mug set out and a note inside of it. Like, my dad made me feel like the most special girl ever. And I feel like nowadays, I don't know, that aspect of romance and like, in a way, chivalry is kind of like, Because like we were talking about earlier, like holding the door open for a girl or something. Get me fucking flowers, you know? Like, I want romance. I think that's beautiful, and I'm not at all saying that it should just be the man that does this. I write notes to Thomas. Like, romance should be both-sided. Like, woman, pick up your man, have a romantic picnic, go up on the parkway, stargaze, and vice versa. Like, romance is essential to a relationship. Like, I'm convinced that that's why so many long-term relationships die out. Because, like, that you start taking that connection for granted, and that romance just goes away.
Well, I guess with technology, again, romance is, like, text me good night, like, every night before bed, and text me good morning, and, like, tell me I'm pretty, like... And, I don't know, I'd rather see, like, a gesture, like, a genuine, like, romantic gesture, or, like, do something nice or something thoughtful, rather than... I really don't want any relationship that's based off of text. I wish I could just do away with my phone altogether.
We've been force-feed romance since we were babies when they gendered us. I remember when people would, like, boys would, like, you know, hit on me, like, do terrible things, like, oh, he just must like you, and it's like, but is this what it's supposed to be about? Then when I got to my teenage years, you know, it's like PG-13 movies and people kissing and stuff, like, it just got me, like, you know, a weird feeling, I want this too, and stuff. And then as a female, they like raise you up for marriage and like your relationships and your boyfriend and like boyfriend things and like Valentine's Day. So I've been like stockpiled like what romance is supposed to be. And I get into my own romance. It's kind of like, do I want to follow this like, you know, status quo? Or like, you know, try to make it my own, like go like off the end. So I kind of feel that we're just like programmed to have romance. Like everything is red. And kissing, like emotional stuff, and like sex is like, you know, the ultimate form of it, which is definitely not true. It's kind of like the shortcut that fucks everything up.
I think it's become really blurred because the movies sugarcoat it even in the old days. Everything's sugarcoated, so we don't really know what to do because we don't have conversations about it.
Well, I mean, let's think about what people do nowadays as a romantic gesture. I know for me that, you know, it's just something simple, but it's not a bad thing, is that, you know, I like to have a decent meal now and then. I like to cook something nice. You know, and if I'm sharing that experience and, you know, bonding with someone while doing that, I mean, that's romantic to me in that sort of sense. And I feel like that there's a lot of missed opportunities for a more physical romance, not sexual, but, you know, just being there with someone. People often take that for granted because you spend so much time looking down at your phone, you know, playing games or on social media or something. I like to think about that test of how to emotionally connect with someone in 5 minutes, and that you just stop and you stare at them and don't say anything. And it's amazing how, you know, people take that for granted now because there's not that sort of physical connectivity. I remember that there was in one of my relationships at one point, you know, it was just like a speed texting thing to say goodnight or whatever. There was these things that I would always say, you know, it would be goodnight, I love you, and sweet dreams. And I had all of those on speed text. So, I mean, honestly, I could just pull up, you know, the quick text menu, just click on those 3 things and then send it. And, you know, that there's a disconnect of emotion there. I mean, it's so much differently whenever you're telling someone bye in person, whether they're going to be gone for, you know, a day, a week, a month, whatever. I feel like that there's a disconnect there. You're completely connected to them in some form or fashion. But I think that there's a lot of good to have some sort of separation, and I know that that's one thing that I've tried to kind of do a little more in this relationship, is that if I'm at work, I'm at work. I mean, I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to talk to you. And if you're at work, you're at work. I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to come and visit you because that's not what you're there to do. You know, you go there, you do your job, then you can come home and we can talk about it. And if you've had a shitty day, I can cheer you up. If you've had a good day, well, then we can talk about it. And you can share those joys with me or with your significant other or whoever. And it's something more special than just sending it as literature.
I think romance isn't a huge thing. And I also think like we're college students, like I'm 21 years old, if I could afford like a million flowers, I probably would. I can't, but romance is more than that. I feel like we are like a nation of consumers, and being romantic means bringing someone flowers or chocolate or, buying something they like, but when really romance should just be time. And I feel like that's something we don't have a lot of either. Like I go to school and I have a job, and you need time to plan things out and be romantic. I just think we lack that at this age. But it's definitely something to like keep in mind. And honestly, romance is just a way to care for somebody. And if you can do that, then you're good.
I guess I know plenty of people who are cynical, and they say that, like, divorce rates are so high. But at one time they loved each other, so that was technically romance. So I guess before, when romance meant it lasted forever, like, I guess even in 1990s Disney movies we still said that. But then today, a lot of us, at least our age, are seeing it, or even younger kids. I've talked to kids that like I'm at schools with and I'm teaching. They say all the time how their parents are divorced, or their parents are getting divorced, or they hope their parents get divorced. Like all these issues to where they still think their parents loved each other at a point, there's no doubt, but they don't think that has to last forever. So romance can be a fleeting moment and not necessarily an entire lifetime.
I think in a world of like fast and easy dating, there's definitely been kind of like an emphasis put on like casualness and kind of like not wanting to get super attached to someone. At least in like the social groups that I've been part of, there's this big like, I don't want to be like tied down, like I don't want to have to like commit to one person. And so maybe in that, romance has been lost a little bit. But I think that we still are very much like attached to these like older ideas of romance of like, I will devote myself to you, and like I will spend so much time and energy on you, and like and it's very monogamous, our ideas of what romance can look like. They're always centered around one person. The idea that you can be like super romantic with several people is kind of like, well, it's cheating. And I'm really excited about the fact that I realized that I can be romantic with several people and not be like feel guilty about it.
We don't want to spend time on anything. Like, if we want something, we want it immediately, and I think that kind of makes it hard for romance to still be in many people's minds, because romance is, I think, that same thing like I was talking about earlier with nurturing something. Like, you don't get romance immediately. Like, you have to work for it, and if your attention span is so short, you don't want to work for it, and so what's the point?
I think that's where a lot of people get into trouble, because they romanticize everything. So I know my generation, where I grew up in high school, it was right in the middle of the twilight phase, and so a lot of my friends who were heterosexual girls were, I need a man to come and save me and take care of me and do all these things. It was basically like associating that whole like princess concept, where they need a prince in shining armor. And I think that has, at least I like to think that's changed, especially with the way young women especially are presented with fiction now. The Hunger Games and, Divergent, you have a lot of really self-reliant, active young women who can really influence female youth at a young age to not look for men who can come in and save them. And so I think the idea of romance has then changed, because it's not like people rely on the man in the relationship to do the romancing. Obviously, I've been out of the heterosexual dating scene for a while now. And so with Adam and I, romance ends up being like spontaneity like, hey, put on a dress shirt and some nice pants, we're gonna go out somewhere nice, or I know this movie's been playing and I really think you'd like it, and you've been talking about it a lot, we're just gonna go. And that seems to work for us.
It's really interesting. I think nowadays people don't look for romance as much as they used to. They look for friendship or companionship. If you want to be with someone for the rest of your life, you look for someone who you would want to spend that time with, rather than someone who could charm you or sweep you off your feet, because people know nowadays those people aren't the most interesting people. And I think today's society tends to enjoy intellect more than charisma. That's just me personally, and then most people that I've met. But I know people also like charismatic people, so I understand if people look for romance more than they look for companionship. But I just think it's become more of a 50-50.
I have a strange belief on romance. Well, not strange. It's just different than, I guess, the norm in our country. It's a function. It's just a function of human life. You know what I mean? We're attracted to each other for the sheer purpose of, breeding. And if you're not breeding, then there's no real function behind it other than fulfilling that need. You know what I mean? For me, it's simpler that way, to think of it that way. It's just a part of life. You need communication with other people. You need to communicate with other people. It's healthy for you. You need to keep yourself busy. You need to work on something and accomplish little goals, that feeds the human soul. You need intimacy. You need it. Some people don't, but a lot of people do, I guess.
What role do you think social media plays in dating?
I feel like social media hurts dating in a lot of ways. You broadcast stuff like, oh, Instagram, here's a picture of me and my boyfriend doing this thing, please like it. It's becoming a competition almost between couples sometimes. They're putting the relationship out for the world to see and letting people follow the relationship almost like a TV show of sorts. It adds more pressure, and it can be useful for people in a long-distance relationship in some ways, but a lot of the times when it's a couple that's always together constantly, it kind of just turns into a way to put themselves out, be like, I'm still with this person.
I think it's just easier for people and stuff. It's like a shortcut. And I think it's just becoming too unhealthy. You lose how to talk to people and see people, so it's pretty damaging in a sense.
I think because now we can, I'm speaking specifically as a young gay man who grew up in high school as an out gay boy, I think social media allows us to view so many people and in so many different areas of society and parts of the country or world. It plays into a huge part of people's sexual awakening. I know I was talking to people at 16 or 17 that didn't even live in my own state, who were out or who were closeted, who were 60, 70 years old and still in the closet, and really interacting with them and not necessarily dating them, but definitely it influenced how I perceived LGBT culture, which then influenced how I saw other men and other guys. So social media, I think, widens our area of reach for possible dating partners, and especially in a marginalized group like a gay male looking for other gay men, especially in the age range of 17 to 20, you don't find a lot of those in the immediate area. So it takes a lot to get connected with other gay men of the same age. And a lot of times that social media helps because you have forums and other things you can get involved with and message people. It's not exactly in person, but you get to at least confer ideas. I did use Grindr when I first turned 18 because I used it when I was legal. And I feel like it was not beneficial to my life in a larger larger aspect of my life. Grindr for me was eye-opening because in the palm of your hand you had hundreds of men who seemingly wanted to talk to you. And as an 18-year-old, very, very innocent young child, seeing that gave me validation for my sexuality, which is horrible, but it also opened my eyes to how terrifying being a sexually active adult was. And Grindr, I ended up dating 2 boys I ended up meeting there, and they were probably the worst relationships I have ever had. Specifically because we just weren't emotionally capable of being intimate with each other non-sexually. And that was a huge problem. I kind of am concerned about Grindr now, especially because there were quite a few news stories not too long ago about 16, 15-year-olds on Grindr pretending to be 18, and there's just a lot of, it's access to a culture that we're not educated about. Gay men are not typically given sexual education about really anything. You have to trial and error a lot of the time, which can be fatal. And a lot of times Grindr reinforces really horrible gender stereotypes and stereotypes about gay men. It further marginalizes us by separating us into tribes and a lot of really horrible things that have to do with making ourselves go against each other and not really coming together as a community. It's a whole nother point. But in the aspect of dating, I feel like Grindr and Tinder are pathetic when it comes to seeking a long-lasting relationship. I have yet to meet anyone who's met someone and had a meaningful relationship on either Tinder or Grindr. They are great for having a quick hookup or a game, whatever, swipe left, swipe right, see who contacts you, but I don't feel like they're a viable source to actively look for a relationship. I'm under the impression you need to be friends first, dating partners second, and lovers third, and if one of those doesn't fall in right, you kind of get fucked. So if you look there for friends, I feel like that's the way you go about things. Not, hey, this torso is cute, let me message it, and maybe we can sleep together, and that's how I know I'm going to be with him for the rest of my life. I don't see how that logic works.
Ever since MySpace days, way back in the day, being in a relationship on social media was like this huge thing. I think that's so stupid. Like, if you actually looked at, if they actually logged their relationship history, you'd be like, oh, you guys, I can clearly tell you made it official on October 9th, and you had a fight on the 17th you didn't log about, and you didn't talk until like the 19th. So I think we project what we want people to see. We want to make things seem happy and whatever, and I think that our ideas of what people think about us in a relationship way more heavy than like actually just being in that relationship and just being. I don't know why people need to like post everything about it. It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, it definitely can connect you with people that you would possibly never meet before. But I don't think it's as valuable of a relationship you meet with people face to face. It's all very instant gratification, like it all just kind of, I feel like, quantifies us too, sort of, like, you put this is like what, like with Facebook, like, you write a little thing about yourself, and, like, even though I don't even feel like anyone does that anymore, like, you just kind of, like, figure that out through, but at the same time, like, through what you do with Facebook, because that's, I don't know, you try and, like, make yourself a certain, I don't know, social media is weird, it puts a barrier between your real self, so, like, who is really out there, and, like, it's not really you on all your social media shit. But I feel like shit like Tinder is just... Do you mind me cursing?
No, not at all.
I feel like Tinder is just even worse than Facebook in just, like, really quantifying us to a very, like, base level. Who fucking knows if you're gonna like that person just by their face or, like, what the picture of them, like, that person that you, like, thought might not have been attractive enough was, like, could have been, I don't know, you have no idea what that person actually is. It's just their face, like, the soul of a person is so much different, and their character and, like, everything else about them.
I think it's horrible. I've, like, all throughout high school, I would get mad at guys. I was talking to him, like, will you like that girl's picture on, like, Instagram? Or, like, yada, yada, yada. And then I eventually got over it. I was like, whatever, like, I don't give a fuck, it's social media. And then recently, the roles have reversed, and now guys that I've been talking to, like, the past several, they've been like, so who's that guy you just followed? Why is he liking the past 6 of your pictures? You've liked 2 of his pictures in the past week, but not any of mine. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the kind of guy I attract. But, I think it's got kind of a horrible aspect. Just deleted my Tinder, actually, like 3 days ago. And it was fun, like, it's tons of fun because I want to see what people are attracted to me. And I'm like, if I could get it, like, if I wanted to get it, I could get it from, like, all these guys and girls, which is cool, but I've never actually met up with anyone off Tinder. I feel like there's kind of still an unsafe aspect towards it. I was gonna meet up with some girls, but I would probably never meet up with a guy from Tinder.
I think it's affected dating in good ways and in bad ways. You can reach a larger pool, I guess. You know, you can reach out further. You have better chances of finding a better fit. Think about years ago when people, you know, all you knew was the people you came in contact with physically. And travel wasn't as attainable for many people, you know, just a lifetime ago. We didn't even have aircraft. So you were limited, and you're only gonna do what you're limited to, you know what I mean? You're only gonna exist within the world that you're limited to. If you open that up, I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, people are meeting from across, you know, oceans and getting to know each other. I think it just opens you up to a bigger world, you know? It's a great thing. You gotta know what the rest of the world is like, or attempt to, you know, understand, maybe. Bad ways. I'm horrible. I really don't like a possessive take on relationships. Like, I don't own somebody I'm dating. I don't own, and they don't own me, you know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes social media is a platform for which people can show off their possessions. And too often, a mate is seen as a possession. And that's just trouble. You know, it really is. I think you need to be careful. You know what I mean? Like, there's one thing to live your life the way you want to live your life, but if it's destructive, don't do that. You have to have the foresight to know what's safe and what's not. However, if, you know, it is an interesting dynamic, though. I think it is a way to meet people. However, it's kind of been shoved into the purely physical spectrum of dating, or it's perceived that way. But I think there's earnest ways to use those applications to meet somebody you could potentially call a partner or meet.
So you state it's possible to use it that way. But what do you think about the actuality of it?
I just think it's dangerous. There's some real stuff out there that can hurt you. And there's people out there that maybe you don't need to meet, you know? But everybody on those things is supposed to be grown-ups. You know what I mean? And you do with your life what you want. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, more power to you. Just be careful.
I think it's affected it quite a lot because, like I said before, it kind of takes away part of the dating experience. You're not really getting to know someone when you're dating them. You're kind of getting to know them in a physical sense as opposed to a mental sense or a psychological sense, because you can get to know someone through text message or through Facebook or FaceTime or anything. You don't have to physically be with them. So it kind of takes away an aspect of dating, but at the same time, it can make it easier for someone to date someone. Like you can plan easier when you have social media. You can meet up easier. You can call people. I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword, as it is in most cases. Like, technology hurts and helps. So I think it benefits relationships in some ways, and then in some ways it kind of takes away part of it. I myself would probably never use a dating website. I just don't find that it's sincere. I don't find it realistic. I understand that people have met girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, anything on dating websites, but I don't understand. Like, I would rather meet that person in person, because honestly it could be kind of scary putting yourself out there on a dating website for anybody to see, because you could attract someone who doesn't really want to be in a relationship with you, just wants to meet you for some perverted reason or some terrible reason. So I just think that's kind of terrifying. But I know people who use dating websites to help boost their self-esteem, which I've found is a strange reason, but I guess it works. Just to see if they attract people. I understand people using it in that way, but I personally think that it would be better to meet that person in person.
I think that it has the power to be able to link people all over the world in a new way that we're not sure how to use. Like, globalization is an amazing thing, but it's also bad because in the way we're not recognizing people, we're recognizing, again, fleeting moments of how they feel. When you're angry on the internet, it lasts forever. But when you're angry in real life, it could be a part of you that lasted for a second and then you maybe never experience again. So I feel like it's made romance in that same way. It can go as quick as the internet to where it happens and lasts forever. But then when we realize that we're not on the computer all the time and what it's like to actually be with the person, where things happen so slowly and things get muddled to where it's not always something you can refer back to on a post that you did 2 years ago, I feel like that makes it a lot more difficult to where you don't remember what it's like to be in the moment anymore. You're so concentrated. If you spend hours on the internet, when you come into real life and you realize what it's like to be in front of another person, it makes it hard because you don't know how to have that interaction anymore with people. And so it makes romance a lot harder.
I think in a way it's facilitated dating, especially for some people who are really socially anxious, or for people who feel kind of stuck in their current social context. That's cool. But it has complicated it by how saturated we are in the constant potential of dating someone, it makes it way easier for people to be constantly bouncing from person to person and viewing people more as experiences than as people, which I think complicates things a lot. And it also allows us to meet people that we may be quite different from, and kind of that could create complications. But honestly, I don't do internet dating. I'm not opposed to it at all. I think there's a lot of big stigma around it, but I don't think there needs to be. But I don't think that I do traditional dating in the sense of the way I meet people, or is there a traditional sense of what dating is? I don't think that there is. I think that everyone has a different approach to how they want to connect with other people. So I have a hard time just kind of narrowing down the definitions of dating into one cute little package or one easily understandable package. Yeah, most of our generation just tends to place a lot of emphasis on dating through internet mediums.
It's just another way to stay connected and to be in touch with another person's life. And social media now with memes and cat pictures and all of that stuff. I don't know, that it's something that I've often pondered, because I'm not big into social media. I mean, I have a Facebook, and that's about as far as I go. There's no Tinder apps. I've never used one. Farmers Only, I laugh at that. And I find that kind of stuff interesting because I don't feel like you really get to know the person, and if you're trying to judge whether or not you want to date them by social media, I think that's incorrect. I think that, you know, people should definitely talk. I mean, that's how I've got the girl that I've had now. I've been chasing after her for 3-4 years, and it wasn't over social media. I didn't text her. I texted her whenever we were first trying to start dating, but, you know, if I ran into her or whatever, we would just talk. And, you know, social media, whenever you just read what's going on. I mean, for example, one time, one of my friends, his girlfriend texted something like, "I'm just so over everybody." And I called him up and I was like, "So what happened?" And it's like, "She locked her keys in the house," kind of thing. It's like, oh, gosh, you know? And the fact that people recognize that, or, you know, especially if you know that they're in a relationship and, you know, I don't know, it's interesting. It's an interesting societal thing that's going on, an evolution. I don't think it's the end all be all though, for certain, as far as dating is concerned. I find it weird that Match.com uses computer algorithms and math to calculate, you know, humans and like marriage and breeding and stuff. And, you know, long term, if you look at it, it's creepy. It's like there was an algorithm that someone just made up based on, you know, how you answered a question, and that's how this child was born, was, you know, semi through an algorithm. And it's very strange how technology is being incorporated so much, and part of the reason why I try to stay away from it.
It helps people find connections. Facebook, you see somebody cute, and it's also made dating so much more shallow.
How so?
Tinder. You see somebody and you're like, they're hot. Like, you know? It's not like you meet somebody and you strike up a super fascinating conversation and you want to see more of that person. It's just a purely aesthetic appeal. Like, you think they're attractive and that's like the basis of it. And so I feel like that kind of, I don't know, it can pervert it in a way. I feel like that's what everybody searches for in their life, is that kind of connection. Like, you just enjoy their pure presence in their company. And when you form a bond with someone, it's special, and you feel special. And it's exciting, and it's amazing. It's absolutely fucking amazing.